Hello viewers, I'm your host Shivangi Mishra with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show with Raisina Dialogue 2024, which was recently held in New Delhi. The dialogue was attended by global leaders who shared their views on important challenges facing the world. They discussed issues including globalization and role of technology in modern world, climate change and counter-terrorism. A report.
The world order is changing from being unipolar to multipolar. This transformation is predicted on India's rise to prominence as a global leader, able to maintain its independence while simultaneously claiming pride in being one of the world's oldest civilizations. In a bid to rise and shine its glory around the world, India recently hosted Raisina Dialogue 2024 in capital New Delhi. The conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics demonstrated a dedication to global cooperation and economic growth under the leadership of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This three-day dialogue was made more global by the participation of leaders from about 115 different countries. While highlighting India's burgeoning global presence, External Affairs Minister S. J. Shankar emphasized the need for multilateral reform during his closing remarks at the Raisina Dialogue's inaugural event.
When the UN was invented, it had approximately 50 members. We have 4 times the members. So it's a common sense proposition that you can't continue the same way when you have 4 times the members. If you look at the last 5 years, all the big issues, in a way, we have not been able to find multilateral solutions. So the results are also, or the lack of results demonstrate the case for reform. In many cases, the rules have been gamed. We have today, we speak about globalization, for example, and the fact is that the world trading rules have been gamed, we have a lot of our challenges today also emanate from how countries have used that for their benefit at the expense of the international community.
The theme for Raisina Dialogue 2024 edition was Chaturanga, and that is conflict, contest, cooperate, create. This year, the Raisina Dialogue is a beacon of hope and collaboration, uniting thought leaders, policy makers and visionaries to explore solutions to our world's most pressing challenges. During the event, Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said India had a vital role in the ongoing Ukraine-Russia conflict amid the rising geopolitical tensions around the globe. In order to address the ongoing conflict in the European heartland, the Greek Prime Minister urged countries to use their influence on the international scene.
This 9th edition of the Raisina Dialogue is taking place at a time of heightened geopolitical tensions, a protracted war in Ukraine, new conflict in the Middle East, where the violence that has erupted goes beyond the direst predictions. There's a horrifying death toll of civilians. There's a risk of regional destabilization. There's no clear path at the moment, at least, to a sustainable de-escalation. As for the war in Ukraine, the unthinkable has happened. A war in the European heartland. It is still raging on with devastating consequences. 2 years, almost to the date, since Russia attacked Ukraine.
Foreign Minister of Latvia, Krišjānis Kariņš, participated in the event and talked about bilateral relations with India. He informed that the diplomatic relations between the two countries are very good and are going in a positive direction. He also affirmed that India has a huge role to play in the Indo-Pacific region.
For India and Latvia, the relationship right now is very good. In Latvia, we have a growing number of students from India learning in the sciences, in medicine, in other subjects. And here in India we have a growing number of companies, the Latvian companies, that are very successfully exporting. And I think in the future we could look just to grow that. There's a good base. And I think there's plenty of room for very positive growth in the future. I think we view it very positively. So right now we have companies exporting into India, and I know that there are companies that are looking of maybe also moving some manufacturing here. So in terms of an investment environment, I think it's a good investment environment. And the important thing is that we have the communication, the travel back and forth. And as we get more people contact, as there's more economic contact, I think that there's a future in that as well.
The Raisina Dialogue is a multilateral conference held annually in New Delhi, focusing on geopolitical and geoeconomics. It provides a platform for diverse perspectives, fostering understanding and collaboration world over.
Let's now talk about clashes at Afghanistan-Pakistan border. On February 20th, Pakistan forces fired tear gas at hundreds of labourers at Chaman border crossing. According to reports, several protesters were also arrested by the Pakistani forces. This led to calls for shutdown strike and blockade of Chaman-Quetta International Highway. Chaman is the second most important crossing for travellers and goods between Pakistan and landlocked Afghanistan. A report. A sit-in protest has been going on at the Pak-Afghan border for 4 months. Thousands of protesters have been staging demonstrations, sit-ins and road blockades near the Chaman border crossing since October against government's strict visa policy. The protests stemmed from opposition to the newly implemented one-document requirement for travel by the Pakistan's caretaker government, which made it mandatory for all those who pass through to have a valid passport. Thousands of local tribesmen and traders decided to set up a protest camp in Chaman after Balochistan's provincial administration started implementing the new visa and passport policy. The development followed a deportation drive against unregistered foreigners, mostly Afghans. On February 20th this week, Pakistan's border forces fired tear gas at hundreds of labourers at Chaman border crossing. According to reports, several protesters were also arrested by the Pakistani forces. This led to calls for shutdown strike and blockade of Chaman-Quetta International Highway. Chaman is the second most important crossing for travellers and goods between Pakistan and landlocked Afghanistan.
ماشان پر پرله چاپه ولې د کسان پر مخېړي اوس ګڼه پرلت یو ځای سوی دي وکیلات یې ډبرې نیولي دي
او په څه حواله سره
بارډر دی پاسپورټ نه منو تګ راتګ غواړو څلور میاشتې نه شپې کېږي که څوک په قرآن کې د وړو سکه لیدلې ده دا حالات مجبور یې په خدای که نه کور ته غوړې سته نه وړه سته دی پاسپورټ منو د مجبورۍ ګرده راوتلي.
People have been protesting for visa-free trade and their basic rights in Chaman for several days. Instead of listening to demands, Pak forces are inciting the citizens to revolt by arresting and torturing them.
موږ در په دارې څلور میاشتې له شپې کېږي چې دروازه بنده ده د ماښام وچ وړه نسته ورور 15,000 دی اوس پور که 10,000 د بله څه پور که اوس اخر وایي دې ته درولي کوچنیانو ته ولا د شیدو پر ځای اوبه ورکوو اوس وچ کلک مجبور یې ناست یو دا دروازه دې رایله کړي ورور موږ د هېڅ نه خلاف.
The contentious border between Pakistan and Afghanistan remains a site of major conflict. In 2021, the Pakistani army had clashed with Afghan civilians protesting on the Chaman border against the closure of the border area by the Taliban. Taliban announced the closure of the border after Islamabad had ended visa-free travel for Afghans. Since 1949, a series of occasional armed skirmishes and firefights have occurred along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border between the Afghan Armed Forces and the Pakistan Armed Forces. Time now for Asia This Week, the stories from across the continent.
カスタマイズ体験を通じてユーザー同士の交流が生まれるように設計しています。G-SHOCK としては今回はその耐久試験というストーリーを題材にしたんですけれども、商品ごとにたくさんストーリーがあるので、そういったストーリーをユーザーにもっと知ってもらえるためにコンテンツ化していけたらなと考えています。
Greece will support India's candidacy to the UN Security Council for the period 2028-2029. And of course, we also support and participate in the broader dialogue about reforming the UN itself in order to make it more representative of the shifting patterns of development and global power.
हमने फार्मा, मेडिकल डिवाइसेस, टेक्नोलॉजी, इनोवेशन, स्किल डेवलपमेंट और स्पेस जैसे कई क्षेत्रों में सहयोग बढ़ाने पर जोर दिया। हमने दोनों देशों के स्टार्टअप्स को भी आपस में जोड़ने पर चर्चा की।
The Greek were to address social issues, adapt to future social situations, and spread cutting-edge knowledge.
未来体験が言い換えると実証実験というものになってまして、 企業がすごくみなとみらい R&D 増えたりとかスタートアップで館内が増えてたりするんですけども、こういうイベントを一つして、いろいろな方に実証実験を見ていただいて企業がこうアイデアを得たりとか、ヒントを得てよりイノベーティブな活動に、参加できるように進めたいっていうのが一つ大きなコンセプトになります。
On. In Pakistan, two major parties, PMLN and PPP, have agreed to form a coalition government. While Shehbaz Sharif is set to become Prime Minister, Asif Zardari is going to become President again. However, Imran Khan's party PTI has branded the coalition mandate thieves. PTI is alleging that the votes were rigged to keep his supporters out of power. Meanwhile, several Pakistani citizens have also expressed a lack of hope in the newly formed coalition government made up of former politicians of old powers.
The agreement between Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's Pakistan People's Party and the three-time Premier Nawaz Sharif's Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz ended days of uncertainty and negotiations after the February 8 elections produced a hung National Assembly. Both parties had won fewer seats than candidates loyal to jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan. PMLN President Shehbaz Sharif is set to assume the role of Prime Minister once again. At the same time, PPP co-chairman Asif Zardari is slated to become country's president once again. It remains unclear who will take up other major government posts.
पाकिस्तान पीपल्स पार्टी और मुस्लिम लीग नवाज हुकूमत बनाने जा रहे हैं। उम्मीद है कि इंशाअल्लाह ताला जल्द से जल्द शहबाज शरीफ साहब एक बार फिर मुल्क का वज़ीर आज़म बनेगा और हम सब का पूरा पाकिस्तान का दुआ ये है कि यह हुकूमत कामयाब हो और जो हमारे अंदरूनी मसाइल हैं, बैरून मुल्क जो हमारे मसाइल हैं, हर पाकिस्तानी का जो इस वक्त मईशत में मुश्किलात हैं, कि इन तमाम मसाइल का हल निकालने में अल्लाह ताला हमारे साथ दे।
The delay in forming a government had raised concern as Pakistan is grappling with an economic crisis amid slow growth and record inflation, rising violence, and needs a stable administration with the authority to take tough decisions. However, taking to X, Imran Khan's party branded the coalition mandate thieves. His party is alleging that the votes were rigged to keep his supporters out of power. Meanwhile, several Pakistani citizens also expressed a lack of hope in the newly formed coalition government made up of former politicians of old powers.
मुझे तो एक ये मजाक लगता है। उसकी वजूहत ये है कि क्या पाकिस्तानी अवाम इस काबिल है कि इन्होंने ही हुकूमत किए गुज़िश्ता 40 साल से यही हमारे सरों पर मुसल्लत किए जा रहे हैं। तो मुझे तो ये बिल्कुल ही नहीं लगता कि ये चल पाएंगे ना। तो अगर ये मुल्क की मैशियत का आज जो हाल चल रहा है, कौन लोग हैं? यही लोग तो थे। क्या किया इन लोगों ने इस मुल्क और कौम के लिए?
उम्मीद नहीं है कि आवाम को कोई रिलीफ मिले, क्योंकि ये वही सियासतदान है, वही हमारे रहनुमा हैं जो 20-40 साल से 20 साल से ये हुकूमत करते आ रहे हैं और इलेक्शन के दौरान एक दूसरे पे कीचड़ उछालते हैं और उसके बाद जो है जब हुकूमत बनने होती है तो इक़्तिदार में शामिल हो जाते हैं। तो मुझे नहीं लगता कि आवाम को कोई रिलीफ मिले इसमें।
Pakistan's existential problems are unlikely to be resolved by a government devoid of popular support. Analysts believe that the upcoming government will lack the political capital and space to pursue its own agenda. To remain in office, it will require the army's support. For Pakistan, it is time for serious introspection and admission of mistakes. Political instability and lawlessness has driven the state to the edge of the precipice. The future of democracy in Pakistan is bleak.
From intricately handcrafted and homemade authentic products to colourful display of cultural performances, the annual Saras Ajivika Mela in India is more than just a fair. It's a celebration of empowered artisans and their communities. The event not just gives a chance to connect with tradition, but also to support artisans and their livelihoods, contributing to India's self-reliance campaign. In today's episode, let's immerse into the rich cultural kaleidoscope of the Saras Ajivika Mela. Fairs and festivals in India are gateways to the world to peep into the country's rich culture, traditions, and ancient history. For some, these occasions are a way to cherish their special moments with family and friends, together away from everyday hassles, while for others, this acts as an opportunity to bring happiness to their family by earning remuneration. Though regular holdings of fairs and carnivals were never common before, the government today, to support skilled artisans and ensure their livelihood, is putting in a concerted effort to offer them a platform to earn a fair wage. Recently, to promote the campaign to make India self-reliant, the annual Saras Ajivika Mela has been organized in India's Delhi NCR region at Shilpahat. The event, to empower self-help groups, which encompasses a colorful display of craftsmanship by local artisans from across Indian states, followed by a number of cultural programs and events, will continue until the 4th of March.
मेरा भी एक्सपीरियंस अभी स्टार्ट किया है, मैं फ़र्स्ट टाइम इधर आया हूँ। तो जैसे ट्रेड फेयर वगैरह होता है वैसे ही है, ये भी काफ़ी अच्छा है। अगर देखना चाहे तो अच्छा इन्वॉल्वमेंट है, अलग अलग स्टेट हैं, अलग अलग सारी चीज़ें हैं, मतलब न्यू एक्सपीरियंस है। जैसे यहाँ पे जो कारीगर हैं, जो हाथ से जो हैंडमेड जो सामान होते हैं ना, वो चीज़ यहाँ पे ज़्यादा बेस्ट है ऑप्शन।
Over 400 women craftsmen from across 28 states who are associated with self-help groups and are part of handicraft and rural culture participated to grace the event with their authentic and extraordinary products. From hand-woven and handicrafted items from Indian states, each representing the region's age-old traditions and culture, to finger-licking and devouring items and embellishments at reasonable prices, everything in the fair is a pull factor. Every item in the Saras Mela stall is a captivating blend of contemporary craftsmanship with ancient artistry, to which people would come to buy and appreciate their creativity.
मैं तंजोर पेंटिंग रखा है, ग्लास पेंटिंग रखे हैं, आर्टिफिशियल ज्वेलरी रखे हैं, ये सब का स्टॉल है। 2 साल से आ रहे हैं, पिछले साल भी आए थे तो अच्छा सेल हुआ था। ये सब जो है गोल्ड का लीप आता है, हाई लाते हैं, उसी को बना हुआ है। किस तरीके से आपने बनाया और कितना टाइम लगा? इसके बनाने में 6 महीना लग गया मेरा टाइम। वो पहले पलाई रहता है, पलाई पे उसके कपड़ा डालते हैं, उसके बाद पेंट करते हैं, इमली बिजली का पाउडर रहता है, उसी को दे के, और उसके बाद फिर स्टोन बैठाते हैं, उसको उसी को डिजाइन पाड़ते हैं, इमली का बीज का पाउडर का, अरबी का गम रहता है, फिर कल रहता है उसी से। उसके बाद फिर स्टोन बैठा के डिजाइन पाड़ के, उसके बाद फिर हम गोल्ड फाइल रहता है, उसी को बिठाते हैं, उसके बाद फिर हम कलर करते हैं।
Additionally, as part of the annual Ajivika Mela, over 85 cultural programs have been organized in order to sustain the interest of visitors for longer. The arrangements like camel rides for children and adults, parades showcasing small stunts, and folk dances by groups overwhelm the people with joy and happiness. From handmade jewelry to cow dung coasters, entrepreneurs are stealing the show at the Saras Ajivika Mela with their unique products. And with that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.